Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of African News Review. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and with me, as usual, are two brilliant minds to help understand the news as it were. Beginning with sister is Fubara Eneli Esquire, author, Kwanzaa, A Celebration, host, Rethinking Freedom, and co-host of Women and Resistance. The gentleman needs no further introduction. We shall do him his dues. He is host, Black Star News, CBAI 99.5 FM, New York, author of Manufacturing Hate, the motivating book for this program, and he is none other than Comrade Milton Allimadi. Welcome, Comrade.
Karibu.
Well, if I ask the question, news where you're at, we'll probably give the same answer. So who wants to go first?
We're both
let's,
good. I think I started last week, so sister, go ahead.
Okay, let's defer to the sister.
Well,
Good. Yes.
think some of us were awake through it, some of us woke up to it. Historically, how do we characterize this when we claim we have sovereign nations and another entity, because they are militarily more powerful, can go in under whatever pretext and attack another nation and extract, kidnap the leader, whether you argue that it's rightful leader or not, that is up to the people of that land to work out their situation and create trumped up charges, pun intended, and fly the person into your own country, charging them largely with the same charges that you just pardoned somebody else for, another convicted. Yeah, while you yourself are a 30-time convicted felon, adjudicated sexual assaulter, could I use that term?
Yes, sure, you can. Sure, you
and
can.
Have not paid what you owe.
To Eugene Carroll.
And all of this is being normalized by not just the U.S. press, but by leaders all across this globe. I guess the power of gunboat diplomacy, now called nuclear codes, perhaps. So here in Texas, let me do what we're supposed to do, address the news in Texas. We did have protests in our major cities, in Dallas and in Austin. And of course, you did have people on both sides. I don't know how we're still both siding things like this, but largely the Republican so-called leaders in our state declared this was an amazing show of American force, and Trump is doing great things across the world and restoring peace. Never mind that this human being, because I would be generous and not call him anything else than that, less than that, has bombed 8 countries in under, in under 12 months of being in office this
Very
time
peaceful.
around.
Very peaceful.
Yes, very, very peaceful, very anti-war, he's definitely candidate for the Nobel Peace Prize, which, by the way, he is not going to put that woman in place because she got the prize over him. And people who don't study this man don't understand. You keep thinking he's going to be on your side and that your interests are the same. But no, Trump's interests are Trump's interests. Let's not even get into Rubio. I'm going to stop there so Comrade can talk, because I know we have other articles we need to cover.
Okay, so let me just augment what you presented, which is all correct. The other side is, it seems very apparent to me after 24 hours now, that there was a pre-arrangement with the government in Venezuela. And some elements point that to me. Number one, no military casualties from the Venezuelans or from the Americans. That is not possible in a genuine operation if you have soldiers that are actually protecting you. At least some shots would be fired in his defense. That's number one. Number two, the fact that he was taken together with his wife, highly, very suspicious to me. And then, of course, the most important fact is that the vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, is now the president. I don't buy this, that you can have a genuine military operation and you only take the president, you don't take out the vice president, you don't take out the minister of defense, you don't take out the minister of
the whole infrastructure is basically in place.
Absolutely. The entire government is there. So that suggests to me that there was a pre-arrangement. Yes, it's still forcing this president out, but I think they spoke and the U.S. And the Venezuelan government said, okay, this is an acceptable deal. They saw it as something they could live with. Maduro was not going to voluntarily go into exile and be seen as a coward. He would rather be, quote unquote, captured by the U.S. I think the indictment is very flimsy. I don't see how he will be convicted. And even if he is convicted, I see something happening. At the most, he would serve the remainder of terms of Trump's 3 years remaining in power. And whoever is the next president, I think he would be released, if at all he is, quote unquote, convicted on these bogus charges. It's very similar to the strike on Iran when the U.S. went and they hit the nuclear facility, and Trump said it was a beautiful, successful strike, and Iran also said yes, it was very destructive. They destroyed everything. It was too convenient, Iran said I can live. Sorry.
How do you compare or contrast this with Aristide?
Okay. Aristide, unfortunately, the entire government collapsed when they kidnapped him. And of course, Haiti has never recovered from that chaos up today. That was a key difference, I think.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it was much more chaotic and much more destructive for Haiti. In this case, I don't think, because if Trump, I think the Trump people didn't want to do what Obama and Clinton did in Libya. You want the oil, but if the country is too damaged, then nobody can get the oil, including the state.
Yeah. Okay,
So the reports of 150 U.S. aircrafts, was that just a show of force unnecessarily by the United States of America to send a message to other entities if this was a pre-arranged setup? The contrasting reports of, which is still a low number, but 40 military and civilian people being killed during this.
No, that's real. They only see that as collateral damage, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And they'll pay compensation for that, and they'll move on. It's such a cynical world we live in,
Okay. We're supposed to be a news analysis program. And so what jumped out at me immediately was the role the press played in the entire episode. And so I have a series of headlines, and I want both of you to give me your take on what you read into such headlines. So first was Maduro in custody at UN detention center after capture during U.S. strikes on Venezuela. That's the BBC. U.S. strikes Venezuela and captures Maduro, Trump says. CBS, photos show handcuffed Maduro escorted by DEA administrator. That's the ABC News. How the U.S. attacked on Venezuela and the abduction of Maduro plays out. Al Jazeera. World reacts to U.S. strikes on Venezuela. That's from Reuters. And handcuffed Maduro says, Happy New Year. Sky News. Venezuela President Maduro captured deals blow to Iran. Fox News. And finally, Maduro arrives in New York after capture in Venezuela. NBC News. What's your take on those headlines?
Okay, I'm only interested in the one, and unfortunately for Fox, it's a premature celebration when it says it's blow to Iran. I mean, obviously, that's something they also probably coordinated with the U.S. government, maybe with Rubio, because still,
Okay.
of course, they're sending signals to Cuba, they're sending signals to Iran as well. I think if Netanyahu could not convince Trump to go in with ground troops in Iran, it's highly unlikely that he's going to attempt again. The pretext is not there right now. At least at that time, we're saying, okay, we're helping to defend Israel against this missile attack from Iran.
Okay, sister?
I feel like responding to what their headlines are is me just buying into the BS. Can we talk about the deeper issue here?
Okay.
When have we seen this before? Are we, or maybe we never left colonialism? This idea that if I am quote unquote a stronger nation, I can go in, do whatever I want. Let us not disregard this guy is not even nuanced. He's not trying to hide anything. It's like, we're going to go there. We're going to control the oil. We're going to decide what happens. That's exactly what he said. We're going to make a lot of money. He said the same thing for the deal that he signed in Africa. I mean, let's just be very clear that this man wants to be a world dictator. He has access to nuclear weapons. He has a bunch of cowards, including all of us who are part of the voting bloc, part of the voters in the United States of America. Because for anyone listening right now who has sent an email, who has picked up the phone and contacted any of their elected officials to voice a complaint about what is happening, it's our taxpayer dollars. And while no one is talking about how much this operation cost versus the fact that people had just lost health care this month in the United States of America. I went yesterday to pick up my mother's eye medication that she absolutely has to have so that she doesn't go blind. Copay $540 for one medication for 90 days.
Outrageous.
Okay. And so I don't want to get into the nonsense that the media is talking about and their stupid headlines, because there are bigger and deeper issues here. Where else is this man going to attack, and to what aim? And how are we, those of us who claim we love humanity, how are we going to get beyond our individual interests and actually come together? Listen, Maduro was not a good guy. Do not hear that I am supporting him. But if we're going to have sovereignty, we need to have sovereignty. If we're going to have laws and international laws, we need to have international laws. Trump is minus 25% in the polls right now, still won't release the Epstein files. Would it be okay for China to come in and say, based on all of the criminality, based on your violence against Black and brown people in this country, we are going to come and extract you and Melania and hopefully his whole family and charge you? And I think they might have some international laws he can be charged with.
Yeah.
Will that be acceptable to all of you in the United States of America who are saying, this is a great thing, look at our show of force? And when you listened to the man's press conference, he talked about the attack like it was a video game and the power, and you never seen anything like it.
Anything like this.
The violence. People, we need to wake up to the truth of what is going on here. So I don't give a damn about what their headline said or did not say, because they're all in bed with this. People are capitulating to these oligarchs, and all of us are going to bear the brunt of our lack of courage in this time. Today, Maduro, tomorrow, who else?
Who else, yes. So I want to leave our audience with this thought. He is considered a drug trafficker. Just reason with this. The man sits on $380 80 billion barrels of proven reserves of oil, and then he will traffic in drugs. Does that make sense to any logical person?
Nobody believes that. And they're no longer even talking about that.
I mean, that is hilarious.
But I want to add one point.
Idea of there was a conversation during Trump's first presidency. The fact that we've even given this man 2 shots at this, But anyway, during Trump's first presidency with Putin, and some kind of agreement about you get Ukraine, I get Venezuela. I mean, is that all conjecture? Is there any truth to that, Comrade Milton? I don't know if you have any.
To me, I've never heard of it, but it makes sense 100% because I think by the end of probably January, we will have a Ukraine surrender, if not February. I think this was between Russia and Ukraine is going to last long. But in terms of where is opposition coming from right now, it's not there. It's not in South America, Brazil. They know what this guy is capable of doing. So they'll say something, but it will not amount to much. The only global opposition right now to imperialism, ironically, is coming from these 3 small countries, Burkina Faso, Niger, and Mali, the alliance of the Sahel states. And I think this is going to be perilous times for them as well, because they don't want that type of opposition to spread anywhere else around the world. And I know France is working feverishly with its U.S. allies
to tap into
what is happening in the alliance states.
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight.
So, to the point that you raised about the Sahel region, and Adesoji, I know you're trying to get us to the other articles we need to cover. The language that Trump used about it is our oil they stole from us.
And we're only going back to get it.
Kind of couched in this idea of, quote unquote, the American oil companies, U.S. corporations.
Yeah.
Not owned by the U.S. government now, so we need to understand how this is working. Supposedly made investments in Venezuela. Perhaps they feel they didn't extract enough and get enough of their profits, whatever their profit margin is. And to the extent that it was all of those projects were now nationalized, we were stolen from. So now the U.S. government is using taxpayers' dollars to go and fight for U.S. corporations who feel that they were wronged. Where have we seen this before? When we talk about Africa and colonialism, did we not start with the trading companies? The Royal Niger Trading Company, so on and so forth. And then you had gunboat diplomacy.
Yeah.
If you want to call it diplomatic, where African leaders were essentially forced to sign these treaties, signing away their rights, and it's happening again on behalf of corporations, trading entities. So the point I was trying to get to is Niger. Niger has nationalized
its uranium.
Yes. But remember, America invested quite a bit. We've talked about that before. On a base.
A drone base in Agadez.
Yes. That they no longer have access to. Will this be the language and the justification for going into wherever you would like and say we have an investment and we're there to protect
our
it?
interests.
I actually heard people say something along the lines of America was just defending itself. You are going into another country and being an aggressor, and now you're defending yourself?
Yeah.
Let me stop here because we could spend the whole show on.
If you write the story, you can write anything you want, and that is what's going on right now. And the next target to follow your model that you presented is most likely going to be Cuba, because Cuba nationalized the U.S. oil assets and other companies when Fidel Castro and his fighters took power in 1959, New Year's Day. So what they're going to do is they're going to go back and apply that same model to Cuba and saying, this is what you owe us. And, this is the arrangement. I mean, Castro is gone, so I don't think they have such a pressing. They would have started with Cuba if Castro was still there.
Yeah.
Right. And they're going to, and this thing, of course, that you say, we've seen it. That's exactly what France did to Haiti. That you deprived us of the enslaved labor we had. So therefore, you're going to pay for it for the next, I don't know how many decades. And that's what they're trying to impose on Venezuela.
And the playbook constantly replays itself. 1989, Manuel Noriega, the same thing. He was picked up, brought to the United States, and sentenced to 30 years in jail.
Noriega was a real drug dealer.
Yes, but still, he was an head of state. But if you forgive one drug dealer who you captured...
I had no qualms with capturing Noriega, to be honest with you. I'm sorry.
No, I mean...
Even if he defied international law.
Oh, God.
That was a true bandit, man.
No, but for me...
I have my limits as well.
For me, it's one rule for everyone. You can't... Listen, it might be a horrid guy. Leave him there. Let people deal with it. When you go in and you start extracting people, where do you stop? What's to stop China going into Taiwan?
China should go into Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China.
Here we go.
Well, a very popular quote-unquote influencer from Uganda has posted that Trump should come in and take out Museveni. So we need to be careful what we're asking for.
I disagree with that one.
If we want to get back slaves and colonize in that way, let's keep open and make the next step.
There's a difference. China and Taiwan are the same. Taiwan is a creation of imperialism. When Chiang Kai-shek, a U.S. agent, British agent, fled after Mao Zedong defeated him. So that was a very artificial
country.
In the case of Uganda, no way. The people of Uganda should remove Museveni. What the people of Uganda should be talking about is stop financing him. Without financing from the West, he will not survive. That's what they should be demanding for. Stop giving him weapons. Stop training his soldiers. Don't give him access to money from the World Bank and the IMF.
Why should they stop? It's benefiting them. And you saw that they just arrested Dr. Birete. Is that how you say her name?
Right.
Yeah, Birete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
the people of Uganda have said consistently.
And they have denied her bail until after the elections.
Absolutely. I think, and I've said this openly, the hundreds of thousands that have come up to see Bobby Wine on his rallies, this time, if they steal your vote, where State House is. That's all I know. I'm telling them. You know where State House. You figure out the rest.
Okay, let's go to our stories. Well, so we start with Kenya. Historical legacy of British rule. So Kenyan MPs accuse British soldiers of decades of sexual abuse. This story comes from the BBC. And it says the report detailed harrowing testimony for communities in Laikipia and Samburu counties near the military training bases. The military bases were accused of evading accountability by refusing to cooperate with parliamentary investigation. But there's a part here I want us to also touch on. It's part of a report documents a horrific 1997 incident in Acha Post where 30 women were gang raped at knife point, some inside their own homes. Besides rape and assault, the inquiry also documented cases of abandoned fatherless children. Dozens of children have been fathered by British soldiers who return home, leaving behind single mothers facing stigma and financial hardship. Finally, this is it. It says the MPs also allege that Batuk has never carried out the legally required environmental and social impact assessment for its field exercises and raised concern over the possible use of white phosphorus, which they have described as notorious for the severity of injuries it causes, amongst respiratory issues, miscarriages, livestock deaths, due to toxic fumes and these parts. But the parliamentary found that the existing defense cooperation agreement between Kenya and the UK was structurally flawed, saying the legal document has huge gaps. It noted that the offense of murder, despite its gravity, is not explicitly listed as an offense deemed outside the course of official duty. This, it argued, created a significant obstacle to justice, adding the existing oversight mechanism was largely ineffective, which led to the situation with this Agnes Wajuru, who the British courts are still determining whether the perpetrator of her alleged murder should be extradited to the UK. So what are your thoughts?
Okay, so this story, and once again, I want to commend you for being on top of this story. You're one of the few journalists that I've seen consistently bring up this story. In fact, this coming week, if you comment available, I think we should discuss this on WBI radio.
Okay.
The most chilling and disturbing part is the description of the 1997 assaults. It's as if they're going hunting,
Yeah.
Hunting for prey. That's exactly how it read like to me. It is absolutely nauseating. And then you make the point about murder not being included in that agreement,
yeah.
which means they knew in advance that this issue would come up.
Yeah.
And that was their solution to
they said as part of normal course of duty.
Absolutely, yeah. And then final observation is that, this sounds very much like when the British soldiers were in Kenya fighting the Kenya Land and Freedom Army, the so-called Mau Mau, where they declared that any Kenyan within a 1 mile distance of the radius where the forest, where the fighters took their refuge,
should be considered,
would be live game, and they could be killed. So they've declared essentially people within the zone where this training is going on, the women as live prey. So now, knowing how rapacious these folks can be, there was some point raised about gender-based violence. I think they should go beyond that. They should explore the possibility that they've been committing sexual assaults on male Kenyans as well. That too would not be highly unlikely given the nature of the rapaciousness described in this article. So those are the points I wanted to make.
Okay. Sister?
Looking forward to when we can come on African News Review and we have stories of African leaders actually making decisions and choices that benefit the people of the continent. So we know that the status of forces agreement it flows out of
previous colonial.
The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. And we also know that although we have certain laws, that there's also the issue of asymmetry in the sense of if I don't have the power to enforce the law, what does it matter if I have the law? But the greater issue here also for me is the extent to which we are just, first of all, let me start at the beginning. Why the heck African nations still feel that they have to be trained by their colonizers?
Very good point.
Huh.
What is that about?
Especially Kenya.
Now, I understand, yes, we're buying their weapons and all of that, and you maybe need them to come in and train you on their weapons. But with all the intellect that we have in Africa, and I know this doesn't happen overnight, where are we doing our own research to develop what it's going to take to actually protect ourselves and to stop being so dependent on people who will never never, ever put you in a position where you can really challenge their power. And then how do I invite someone into my home? Let's break it all the way down and make these agreements a little easier. I invite you into my home for the purposes of helping me to fix my stove. Let me just say that. And then you present an agreement to me that says, I can blow up your entire house, not take any due diligence, right? Not have any insurance. And while I'm at it, if I happen to see your son, your daughter, whatever, I'm going to have my way with them if I please. And when it's all said and done, there's not a daggone thing legally you can do to me because you have signed this agreement.
Yeah.
And we sign the agreement and say it makes sense. And it's not even like joint oversight over these entities when they come. They are running roughshod in your own country. And so I'm just going to even start there. Why are we still signing these kind of agreements? And then when you go into the, I guess, denial, if you will, or of Britain, we didn't know. We are willing to look into this a lot more. It's a lot of just double speak. It's a lot of nonsense because these soldiers have been allowed to leave the country, which they shouldn't have been allowed. Your agreement basically allows them to do whatever. But the good news that is coming out of this, because I'm always trying to find the good news, is that right now the parliament in Kenya is reviewing an agreement that they're supposed to be signing with France, still to do military training. And now they are arguing just how far the immunity they offer these soldiers is going to be. So hopefully this is a wake-up call for us. There's so many levels at which this needs to be fought, and certainly compensation for the children who need to be taken care of, who've been left behind, should be a high priority, as well as talking about the environmental impact. You know, we act like we have another world to go to. I know they're flying to Mars and going to the moon or whatever. But when we allow them to destroy our land completely, then where do we live? And Croda Mutua talks about this in his book, Ndaba My Children, just the rape of the land, of mother land itself, herself.
Yeah.
Comrade, any final thoughts?
No, I mean, obviously the Kenyan populace have no say in terms of even signing these kinds of agreements, right? It's once again, the African elite who govern the country betraying the people again. And to me, for example, how can these mostly illegitimate rulers even be signing agreements with the IMF and the World Bank? Because that one, every African rural producer on the farm is paying that loan that does not benefit them, right?
Yep.
So unless we really, as I think I've said before, change the nature and structure of governance in African countries, we're going to be wallowing in the same problems and issues for a very long time. If somebody in the rural area said, I can have the power to veto such an agreement, said, no, based on what they've been doing for 30 years, no. You have the power to veto this agreement. It should not be rest with, I don't know whether they have 100 or 200 people sitting in a cushy, air-conditioned parliament making such horrific deals on their behalf.
Comrade, I'm glad you said that because we need to talk about, and I don't know how many people from Africa are watching, but hopefully you all are subscribing and liking and sharing on your social media. But this sense of hopelessness that so many of us across the world are feeling, I don't have any power to do anything. The people who are being elected into these positions are human beings. They live somewhere. Please, nobody interpret that as me advocating any violence or anything, but I'm just saying we cannot act like these people are spirits or ghosts. And so if they have been put into power by a certain group of people, we can also take them out of power. And we can begin to exert a little bit more influence, like there are truly consequences for your action. So there was a time in the United States, I guess in New York City, where you are, comrade, where Trump would show up at places, or J.D. Vance, and just regular folk will boo, at the restaurants and so on and so forth. We need to make people who are making decisions that hurt us feel very uncomfortable.
I agree
wherever they
100%. Yep.
Okay.
Those are the kind of intervention that can actually have impact. I agree.
Speaking of U.S., we go to our next story, which is historical in nature, but we're having to live through it now. And it comes from The Independent. It's titled, "A Cemetery Highlighted the War Sacrifices of Black Americans. Trump's anti-woke policies removed them. Carried out without any public explanation, the removal has provoked anger amongst Dutch officials, the family of U.S. soldiers, and local residents." And here is 79-year-old called Leeson, son of a Black World War II soldier and a white mother, showing the picture of his father on his mobile phone during an interview in Roermond, Netherlands. And so initial part says, "Our visitors to a U.S. military cemetery in the southern Netherlands has voiced strong objection after 2 displays honoring Black troops instrumental in liberating Europe from the Nazis were removed. The Black who did it, the Black American Monuments Commission, a U.S. government agency, took down the panels from the Visitors Center at the American Cemetery in McGrattan sometime in the spring. This site, a resting place for approximately 8,000 soldiers, is nestled in the rolling hills near Belgium and German borders. The decision followed a series of executive orders issued by President Donald Trump, which aimed to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. In a March address, he declared, "Our country will be woke no more." But this is the part I want you to take away. The U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands, Joe Popolo, seemed to support the removal of the displays. He says, and I quote, "The signs at McGrattan are not intended to promote an agenda that criticizes America." I wonder what he means by that. Who wants to go first?
I mean, that particular quote does not deserve a response, so I won't respond to that. It's a waste of time. I think there's a potential solution, and this is my proposed solution. The U.S. Black veterans organizations should get together with some of the progressive members of the Dutch Parliament, and I'm sure the Dutch Parliament, just reading by the tone of the article, would not oppose coming up with their own legislation and financing to build even a better monument and perhaps even a museum to this cause. And I think that will just put to shame the administration's, racist, reactionary agenda. I was reading a story recently, and I forget the details now, where there's a military base that they also removed the name of a Black soldier from the military base, but they did not have to change the name because there was also a white, I don't know whether it was a soldier as well or
who had the same name.
Who had the same name. So they did not have to officially change the name. And then the final point I would like to make is that the irony is that a few weeks ago, we did a focus on the opposite of what is being done in Africa, where in Kenya, Black soldiers who contributed to the British cause during World War II and were never recognized are being acknowledged. And of course, in France, where not only are they being acknowledged, but they're now seeking compensation as well.
Yeah.
So those are my observations.
I mean, I'll just, before Sister goes, I'd just like to also add that we should have it on record that majority of the concentration camps, the first soldiers that got into said camps were actually Black American soldiers. I mean, the fact that you want
It's
to do
outrageous,
it,
man. Totally.
it's not. It's just, sister.
Okay. So this is in the Netherlands, which I actually had the fortune to visit as a very young girl. I guess I'm ignorant as to how a foreign entity, what the agreement is that this foreign nation has a building access. What is this? A part of their embassy? What? That they can unilaterally make a decision about what part of the history of your land is told on your land.
Very good point.
I need to research to get more of
No,
an
you're right.
understanding.
That's an
I mean,
outstanding point. That's a
like
good.
seriously, again, think of your house. You came into my house
Mhm.
and then you say, I am going to put up so and so. And I initially agree because, I'm allowing you to put up some paint. But then you can unilaterally make a decision what paintings go up and go down. Like, I'm not understanding the legality of this.
Right,
And
right.
maybe I should
And
spend more time.
sister, when somebody, a Dutch individual, did they put the sign back or something? They were arrested by the police. Think about that.
Yeah. So the point that Milton, Comrade Milton was making earlier, there are so many different forts where they've done this. Fort Bragg, Fort Benning, where they would try to find a white soldier. But even with Fort Lee, it's like it was changed from Robert Lee to a black person, and then they found another white person with the same last name. So yeah. So there's an agenda underfoot. So first and foremost, yeah, my comment is Netherlands, what are you doing? Like, you guys are that, and I'm going to say it, impotent. Like, what are we talking about here? That you cannot determine how the history of your own people, of your own land is told on your own land. I don't get it. Now, those of you in the military might be able to better explain this to me, because I do understand that when there is a military base, that basically the laws of the whoever owns that base exist, that's what rules on that base. So, but I'm not sure this cemetery that we're talking about, does it belong then to the US? Does it belong then to Netherlands? What is the point?
It probably belongs to them in the sense that you have soldiers resting there, and so it's been allotted to them. We have similar type cemeteries here. There's a huge one on the way to the airport here, and there are lots of soldiers across.
Yeah. There can be an agreement on upkeep and maintenance and stuff like that, but not that you unilaterally get to make rules on my land.
Right. I think when they made those laws, they never anticipated they would ever. I mean, if human beings are rational and they're writing these agreements, none of them could anticipate that one day in the year 2025, you're going to have a European American president and an administration that is going to say, you know what, let's dishonor the black soldiers who sacrificed. Because some people don't even think like that. So what he's doing, sister.
With you on that one.
No, let me finish. What he's doing right now is now raising the possibility that these countries may want to re-examine all of those agreements that they struck in the past, to imagine that, yes, in the future, we will have people that are even crazier than Donald Trump.
If they didn't imagine it, it was a failure of imagination. They didn't have to imagine it. They knew that we served in segregated units. They knew that America was racist to us. It didn't require imagination. America always saw us as less than human. So I don't think it's that far-fetched to know. I mean, because even the little part of our history that is being covered was erased for so long. I mean, even this plaque was a recent installment. I think, 2021, something of that nature. So I don't know that it is that they couldn't have imagined, as much as it is probably nobody who looks like us is in the decision-making chairs for this to happen. And that, by and large, no humans
involved
here. I don't think that we factor in. But having said that, this erasure of black soldiers, of black people, of black contributions, we know is almost universal. Everywhere we go, this whole now anti-DEI, and let's break it down. You're anti-diversity. The entire world, if you did not have diversity of biology, will die. You're anti-inclusion. So who do you want to exclude? Right? You're anti-equity. Who is it that is supposed to not be treated
Equally.
with equity?
Yeah.
And so just how do we fight back is, I guess, my question. And I guess we fight back by telling our own stories. We fight back by talking about the 92nd Infantry Division and telling those stories. Those of you who have more of a military background or anybody who has any bit of history, tell the stories. We fight back by talking about the 93rd Infantry Division, right? And this first all-Black division that was deployed overseas in World War II. And then because they were doing so well, we're reassigned from combat roles to labor roles. We fight back by talking about the Black Panthers who fought in France and Belgium and Germany. And some of you who have parents and grandparents, okay? We talk about the 3 Barrage Balloon Battalion, which was the only Black battalion to land on D-Day. And when we talk about the Allied troops from Germany and their airstrikes and all of that, would not have happened, would not have had the success without the sacrifices of that battalion. And let's talk about the Red Ball Express. And these were predominantly Black units that were in charge of logistics that sustained that whole Allied alliance in Normandy and took a lot of casualties. And I'm not even going to get into all the African soldiers who are not, acknowledged in the way that you mentioned, comrade, didn't get paid then. And then, of course, all these Black soldiers come back to the United States of America, denied the GI Bill, denied all kinds of benefits. So, Black people, how do we fight back? We learn our history. We remember our history. We tell our history. And we get these people out of office. When people say elections don't matter, the two parties are the same. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not caping for either party, but
you can tell
those plaques were actually put up under a Democratic president and taken down as anti-woke under a Republican president.
And I would also like to give an acknowledgement to one of the groups of Black soldiers that was based in England who happened to be involved in what is now known as the Battle of Bamber Bridge. And for those who are not aware, at some point, there was an entire Black logistical team that was based in Bamber Bridge, which is between Manchester and Liverpool. And the white soldiers were not particularly enamored about the fact that the locals took a liking to them. And because they wanted to maintain their segregation, and the Detroit race riot then exacerbated issues. There was actually a shooting upon each other when the white soldiers took guns and matters into their own hand and let rip. In acknowledgement of the roles of the Black soldiers within that village, 3 pubs took it upon themselves. Pubs, for those who are not aware, are public drinking houses. And they put a sign outside which says Black troops only, which further incensed the white soldiers. And eventually things were dealt with militarily within the forces. So it goes on to show that if we don't tell our stories, this sort of erasure will be allowed to happen. One final thought. George Orwell wrote in one of his essays when he was talking about the Black soldiers in the UK, he says, and I quote, the general consensus of opinion seems to be that the only soldiers with decent manners were, to use his language, the Negroes. So make of that what you will. So I would go on to our next story, and which comes from Somaliland, and it's from the BBC. And it says why Israel's recognition of Somaliland as an independent state is controversial. Israel has taken the controversial decision to recognize the breakaway state of Somaliland as an independent nation, sparking condemnation from many other countries. The U.S., however, defended Israel's decision at an emergency session of the UN Security Council to discuss the issue, saying the response contrasted with the decision taken by a number of UN member countries to recognize a Palestinian state earlier in the year, a move that the U.S. strongly opposed. Early this year, he said, several countries, including members of this council, made the unilateral decision to recognize a non-existent Palestinian state, and yet no emergency meeting was called to express this council's outrage. The UN Deputy Ambassador to the UN, Tammy Bruce, said, why does he want to do this? A breakaway semi-desert territory on the coast of the Gulf of Aden. Somaliland declared independence after the overthrow of Somali military dictator Siad Barre in 1991. And just want to show you a map here, which is important. So Somaliland is here. And guess what is on the other side? Yemen, which is constant. And this is the Red Sea leading up to the Suez Canal. And so with Israel being here, it gets to police what sort of travels along this line. And this is Somali, and this is the parts that has decided they wanted to break away. So what's your initial thought with this, quote unquote, self-determination, as it were?
Okay, so first of all, I can understand why Somaliland wants to be independent from the rest of Somalia. That is the only part of what was Somalia before they decided to, quote unquote, break away. That has been relatively peaceful for over the last 30 years, you know. And you can tell by the map, somebody watching, you can see it's not like directly continuous, that some of the problems that you see in Somalia proper right now would spill into Somaliland.
Yeah.
So, and their economy compared to the rest of Somalia has been, because they have peace and stability. So that is one thing they have an advantage. And they're hoping that by being recognized as independent, they will be able to have more direct dealings with other countries, more investments, which they believe also would benefit the economy. And of course, the argument is that these are essentially the same people, Somalis. And why are they being productive and prosperous? Because they enjoy peace. So then it would seem that the ideal solution is to also make sure that the rest of Somalia can have peace and stability. That would be the solution, right? So that they could also thrive. And then you would see more incentive for all of Somalia to be reunited. That's one part of it. The second part, of course, is that so long as the status quo is maintained, Somalia will never invade Somaliland to say, okay, we're going to launch a war of reunification, right?
Okay.
So it could be compared to like a situation you had in Nigeria with Biafra, right? We're going to invade so that we can reunite, because they benefit. Somalia also benefits from stability in Somaliland. The people in Somaliland actually, they send support to relatives that they also have in Somalia. So it's sort of been a win-win so far, but it's no longer a win-win when Somaliland wants to be officially recognized as a separate nation. And then, of course, the other point, and this perhaps is the final point I want to make, is that the entity that is recognizing you, with all the problems that it has, all its history, of course, first of all, of dispossessing the Palestinians of their own land. And then, so the history is not comparable when the U.S. diplomat at the UN makes that nonsense analogy. These are absolutely different histories, incomparable. And then the final point is that if you give a base to Israel, rest assured, not only the Houthis, but other entities are going to start striking militarily Somaliland as well. So you're inviting war by proxy against Israel on the African continent proper. That is the most dangerous aspect of this arrangement.
Sister?
Like Comrade said, these are brothers and sisters, right? Before colonialism, before European imperialists came and fractured this space, you had the area that was Italian Somaliland, if you will, and then you had British Somaliland. You had the parts that were absorbed by Ethiopia. You had Djibouti.
The French.
And the French, yes. And so when they both areas get their independence, quote unquote, using that word very loosely in 1960, and then finally decide that they are going to merge, which was on one hand great news. What was set up, though, was the concentration of power in the South versus the North. Where have we seen this before? My God.
Nigeria.
Over and over again in so many African nations, including Nigeria. We've talked about it in Sudan and so on and so forth.
And Uganda. Uganda, exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
And so you then see where from Jumpstart now, it is set up politically and economically for us to start being at loggerheads. Again, what breaks my heart is, I remember when Nigeria was just 3 regions, like within the country, 3, okay. And then we split into 12 states because that was supposed to make sure that every region got more resources.
Yeah.
That wasn't good enough. Then we further splintered into 19 states. Still now creating additional borders. Now we're fighting for land with, so on and so forth. And then it was like, no, 19 is not enough. And then I think now we're at 36.
36.
I've lost track. I think we're at 36. Yeah. And so I look at the African continent, and instead of us finding ways to work together, we're finding more reasons. And I'm not saying that there's not some justification, but nonetheless, our challenges are causing us to become smaller and smaller groups, which makes it easier for us to be picked off by our enemies. If you got a pack of, 1,000 elephants and then you have these hyenas or whatever that want to attack, they're going to look at that whole group and be like, let me get out of here. But you have just one, and then they're like, oh, we can take this. Let's get strategic. We can take this. And so just really the idea. So, and then on the Somaliland thing, there's a part that we haven't talked about. The agreement that they're making with Israel.
Yeah.
Israel's reason for.
Possible reason.
Yes, possible. No. It's stated their reason for recognizing them as an independent nation. We're going to get access to this port so we can control everything going on, as you have said. We can talk about Venezuela as well and the Suez Canal.
Yeah.
We are also now going to have a place to move the pesky Palestinians to and not be bothered with them. That is part of the agreement.
Yeah.
And then supposedly we're going to do an exchange of technology and health and so on and so forth. That's the carrots that they always toss out for us. But let us not let what's happening with the Palestinians get lost in this whole sauce. Yeah. And that we have powers that see the rest of us as just pawns and they're playing around with us. And the extent to which I'm saying, oh, well, but I get this, so it's okay if in my getting this, I allow the disenfranchisement of another group. Sir, ma'am, all that does is weaken you for the time that they decide that you are now expendable.
Yeah, they're inviting serious trouble in their house.
I read it with my mouth wide open. It was like you're just simply opening yourself up for.
They're functioning as an independent state anyway. They should just be satisfied with that for now.
Yeah. Okay. Final story from Tanzania, and it's from the German news organization Deutsche Welle, and it reads, Tanzania new reserves boost tourism, displace locals. Where have we seen this before? A story over land use is unfolding in the East African country of Tanzania. Evictions from ancestral land to accommodate tourism projects have already driven some Maasais to the brink. There is a part here. Okay, so it says the Mountain of God, Odoyo's legal to the Maasai, is an active volcano sharply a few kilometers from the town of Egarosero in northern Tanzania. At its base lies Lake Natron, a shimmering salt lake. It's considered an important breeding site for 75% of the global population of lesser flamingos. But it's also an important site for Maasai people who consider part of it their ancestral land. Now, some fear another mass eviction is coming. I was forced to flee my home. They turned the area where I live into Pololeti Hunting Reserve, said 36-year-old Nesika Daudi, now living in Egarosero. In 2022, the Tanzanian established the Pololeti Game Reserve and designated it exclusively for hunting and tourism. Thousands of people like Nesika are directly affected or even forcibly evicted. Yes. Settler colonialism again.
Right. I mean, with this story, I just want to make one comment. I mean, it's the most repulsive part of it is that an African government is doing exactly what the conquering European colonial powers did to Africans at the time of colonization. And now you have a so-called African government, the highly discredited Suluhu, whose government reportedly killed 700 people during the election in October to extend her rule in Tanzania. Now, I mean, this is comparable to when the British came to Kenya and they seized 2 million acres from the Kikuyu and parts of Luo and gave that land to 1,000 British families, literally for pennies, with 99-year or 999-year lease?
999-year
some
leases.
nonsense like that. So now you have an African government driving Africans off the land so they can invite more hunting and more tourism. I mean, but is it surprising? Of course not. You have neo-colonial governments. This is a neo-colonial policy. So those are my comments.
Sister?
Sounding like a broken record here. My heart breaks. My heart breaks for my continent. On what green earth, in what logic does it make sense to take people off their land, take them away from their only form of livelihood? You are not providing a different form of livelihood. So you're throwing masses of your people into poverty.
And death.
Just so that you can tickle the fancy of bored, largely European people who want to, again, this fascination with violence.
Yeah.
Who, for the sport of it, we did not hunt for the sport of it.
We defended
Will
ourselves.
come and kill off, actually, the strongest of your animals because they want the biggest tusks, the biggest, manes, and so on and so forth.
Yep.
And the money you're supposedly making from this tourism, less than 2% of it actually goes back to the people in terms of healthcare or education or any kind of infrastructure that benefits their lives. And in the case of Tanzania, over 40% of your land, quote,
Insane.
for the purpose of other people coming to hunt?
Completely insane.
Where is Erasure? Oh my goodness. Make that make sense.
That's insane.
Again, my people, think of your house. Let's say, let me make the math easy. You have 5 bedrooms in your house, and then you just curtain off 2 bedrooms. for the purpose of people who can come and do whatever with it, while the rest of you are. And even more so, the 2 bedrooms include, so the 2 rooms include your kitchen and your bathroom, so that the remaining people don't even have a place.
The back of the house.
Yes, yes.
That's great.
And so, wow.
I'm glad that the article mentioned that one of the hunters was Donald Trump.
Yeah.
On a recent hunting trip.
Recently visited the area that they're concerned that after you've moved us off from this other area, and we're now concentrated in this area, which, by the way, when you take a larger group of people and put them in a smaller area of concentration, what are you going to get? More competition.
Agitation. Yeah.
More impact negatively on the ecology, right? More conflict because scarce resources, more people. And then now you're even contemplating, because some white man has said, no, we really like this place. Kind of like with Gaza. We really like this place. We should have it. Oh, Venezuela, we really want this oil. We should have it. People, are we paying attention?
Tanzania could be condemned for this. This is a genocidal policy. They even canceled the flying medical clinic.
Yes.
How are you going to be depriving people of medical care? It means you want them to die. What else?
To make it so untenable for them to live there that they voluntarily leave.
Yeah.
We saw that here in Texas. Let me bring this back to the United States. Here in Texas and Austin, it happened in many other places, when they decided they wanted to segregate the area, and there were places where Black folk refused to sell their land. All they did was, well, no, let me take it back. They decided they wanted the property, but the Black people were not willing to sell. What they did was create these segregation laws where it's like, you can't go to the library here, you can't shop here, you can't go to the hospital here, right? And so when you can't access any of the services you need where you have property, and it becomes prohibitive for you to make the long trek to the places where you have been allowed to access it, guess what you do? You eventually sell, and you sell at whatever price they're willing to pay. And that's how they moved masses of Black people off their land and their property in Austin, Texas, to another area of Texas, which then in the 60s, the federal government came through with the highways and displaced them even from that. And we just see the same tactics played out in marginalized communities all across the world. Wow, and this is what's happening in Tanzania. Again, education is key for us to even understand what's happening, connect the dots, and then speak up for those who maybe at different points are not capable of speaking for themselves. So nothing stops us, as those of us who may be watching this wherever in the diaspora, to write to the Tanzanian government as well and say, this is deplorable. And we are going to withdraw our tourism dollars since this is what you want to cater to. Every little bit makes a difference, I think, rather than throwing up our hands and saying we have no power.
I think next show, when we do the next show, we should come back with the email address of the Minister of Tourism, the Presidency, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and we'll provide those email addresses, and people should send their messages.
One of the things I love about you is you give us, it's like take action. You always give us excitement. I appreciate that.
We have that one life. Let's maximize the use of it,
Homework. Speaking of homework, thank you very much for coming through today. You've done justice to all the articles and the issue with Venezuela, which happens to be a developing story. And hopefully we get to speak more. This is the first episode of this year. If this is your first time here, do like, share, subscribe, do all the good stuff. And sister, brother, indebted to you. Thank you for coming through.
Asante sana. And if people want to propose topics as well, I'm sure Adesoji would welcome that as well.
Yes. And also be mindful that the sister and I also do Women and Resistance. And this week on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we'll be doing Alice Donegan. And at the end of the month, we'll be reading Pre-Colonial Black Africa by Cheke Ate Diop.
Very good one. Very good one.
And we have an incredible guest joining us for that review of that book, Yoprika Somé, who is teaching in Kenya, I believe, but might originally be from
Senegal. Was it from
I'm not
Senegal?
sure if he's from Senegal or Burkina Faso. I'm going to have to confirm, and also a master teacher of Metanetter. So definitely join in.
So thank you all. And until next week, it's good night and God bless.
Waheri. See you.
That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review podcast. We hope you are leaving with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.